All right, so I'm very honored to be joined by a really, really cool individual who lives in one of my favorite countries in the world, Brazil. His name is Caio Nunes de Souza. I'm excited to chat with you over the next 20 minutes or so. So why don't you give myself and our viewers and listeners a bit of context about who you are, what you do, and then what I can best help you with in our conversation here.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, my name is Caio Nunes, and I just came back to Brazil a little bit after COVID hit. And I lived for 10 years in the United States. And my very last year there, I was fortunate to graduate from health coaching school, which was something that I'm really passionate about. So I came back here and I started doing that on the side pretty much because I did have a job with my family. My family owns some stores that sells all kinds of goods and products for all types of parties. As you know, Brazilians love parties. So my family has been in this business for almost 50 years. So I do manage one of their stores here in Brazil. So my coaching business for now, it is a side thing that I do one-on-one coaching. And I do believe that is my purpose and what I've been working on my free time. So
amazing, man. That's great. Yeah. So how can I best serve you in our time together here?
Honestly, all I thought when I understood that I was going to have a call with you was asking you what you would do in my place, right? Because I do have this time restriction when it comes to the time of work that I can put into my own business, which is health coaching. And what would be understanding this time limit, like what would be your steps into making sure your practice can grow organically and I don't know, I can achieve success sooner than later, success by meaning I can serve more people.
Yeah, for sure. How many hours a week do you have to work on this?
I would say about 10 to 20 hours. It really depends, but my weekends more hours. Yeah.
Good. Perfect. So I think that's a good amount of time. A lot of people that we help are in a similar position where they might have a clinic already or another job and they're looking to make the transition. It's very, very common. So I think this will serve a lot of people as well. I'll give you a bit of context. So when I started my business online in 2006, at the time I was working full-time as a trainer and nutritionist. So I was like 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. It was just packed. And the first thing I realized is like, that wasn't the future that I wanted to continue building. So the first thing I'd recommend is doing your best to get clear on what the future looks like for you, right? So really creating a clear vision to the best of your ability. I don't know if you're like me or a bit different. I have a tough time being very clear about what 5 years looks like. But what I am clear about is how I want things to be different from how it is now. So when I was working with clients all day long, I was thinking about, well, I don't enjoy working one-on-one for me at the time, because I've been doing it for so long, every hour of the day. What would I rather do instead? And I started to get a better picture of what that could look like. And obviously that's changed, over the years, but at least it was a starting point. So I had something to hold on to as a vision. So I think that's the first part, is like, you have to know where you're going. Otherwise, it's very tough to get there, right? So that's the first step, I think, is getting clear as much as you can about where you want to be. And maybe it's 12 months from now. It doesn't have to be 5 or 10 years. It could just be like, in a year from now, here's how I want my life to be a little bit different. Here's how I want my business to look, to the best of your ability. Does that make sense as a starting point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So then the next thing is really looking at making time, because it's very tough to find time, right? So we have to really carve out that time to work on aspects of the business that are going to make the most impact. So when I was busy working with clients all day long, I usually had 1 or 2 hours during the day. So like lunch or a break between clients. And at a certain point, I made a decision to say, okay, during my lunch break, I'm going to lock myself in a room, and I'm not going to be distracted by other people or other employees and trainers. And I'm just going to work on my future. I'm going to start building out what I think I need to do for the future. Now, the difference is that I took a long time to get traction. I was from 2006 to 2009. I tried to do everything by myself and I didn't have a lot of guidance. So I was spinning my wheels and I didn't really make a lot of headway. So hopefully I can give you a bit of like direction on what to do with your time while you're spending it on this business. So the key is, again, making the time. I would put it into your calendar. Like if you have, I like early mornings now. I think that's typically the time when we're freshest and most creative. If you can use that time, then no matter what else happens during the day, at least you've spent your time working on the most important thing, which is the business you want to build. So even if you spent, like, what time do you typically get up in the morning?
Around 5:30.
Okay, so you're an early morning riser.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself, do you work best in the morning or later in the day?
I think morning are the best for me. I tend to get a little distracted if I sit down to work in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Cool.
morning is my best.
So I would suggest if you can get up an hour earlier, which is 4:30. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but your vision, your future is worth it. Mm-hmm. Let's say you get up at 4:30 every day, right? So 7 days a week. Right there, you've given yourself 7 hours. And if during that 1 hour of time, turn off every distraction you can think of, make sure your phone is nowhere near you. And then during that hour, it's like, okay, well, what do I do with my time? Okay. So that's kind of just from a general setup standpoint. So let me ask you this. Do you have an idea of who your best clients are or who you want them to be? Like what problem you solve, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. So as of right now, I've had 4 clients. I'm working with 3 still. Mm-hmm. And this first guy, which was a good friend of mine, when he heard I was doing this, I was doing health coaching. He's a professional athlete. He's a volleyball player. I was a volleyball player for 17 years. So he was like, hey, I want to do this. I want to know what you know, and see how this can help me. And this guy he talks about his Mamba mentality. So he talks a lot about Kobe Bryant and being really focused in what he loves and doing the extra things to make himself good. So this guy, it was easy to coach him because he was all in. I didn't have to convince him to drink more water, or I didn't have to convince him to, take time for mental health. I didn't have to convince him so hard, he understood the message and he took it to heart that those things could help him on his game. So I think that kind of client, I would say athletes, I don't like to limit myself just to that. However, I think athletes, high performance athletes would be the best because I was an athlete one day and I did not know much of what I know these days.
Yeah, totally. I was the same.
So I feel like there are a lot of people there this year going to go to Japan for the Olympic Games, but could use the help to become healthier versions of themselves,
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Cool. So first step is first and foremost, really identifying that single target market, right? So, who that perfect client is, whether it's high level athletes within a specific sport or just athletes in general. Because I agree with you. There's a certain mindset there that's really enjoyable to work with, right? They'll do the work, they show up, they get it. And then really thinking about, okay, because there's always going to be a market big enough for whoever you want to serve, right? Like the internet is huge. You'll find them if you're proactive with your marketing. The key is being able to, for the lack of a better word, label yourself as the experts for that market, right? So Healthpreneur, we specialize in helping health professionals grow their virtual business, right? I could help a lot of other businesses in different spaces, but we don't because that's the specialty, that's the area of focus that I really want to serve. And there's more than enough fish in the sea, right? But it's really important to think about because your target market, your perfect clients will really be one of the most important decisions you can make because if let's say you're helping there's a difference between, even just from a financial perspective. Let's say you wanted to help professional athletes. Okay. That's a different demographic than high school athletes, right? And just in terms of mentality, financial wherewithal, et cetera. So like little distinctions like that can make a big difference. But even money aside, just think of like, who do I really enjoy working with? Who can I create the biggest change for? And who has a problem or desire that is going to be a must for them to solve or improve upon, right? Because we want to be able to provide a solution that people have a burning problem or desire around. If it's just like a nice to have, it's not going to be as compelling. We talk about with our clients like going after the bleeding neck instead of the stubbed toe, right? So where someone has a lot of pain and urgency, it's usually going to be easier for them to commit to a program or working with you that's going to make a big difference for them than someone who just has a bit of a bruise, right? As an example. So right. that single target market is super important to really think through. Within that thinking, then it's thinking about what is the major problem that they're dealing with and what is the opposite of that, which is, so we call it what's the problem? And then what's the promise? So in the case of the volleyball player you're working with, what was the problem that he was dealing with, that he wanted help with?
I don't think that he had such a problem like that. He just wanted knowledge. You know, people sometimes have that eager for like knowledge. I need to understand more. I need to know more. And they, instead of reading a book, I feel like having a coach was something good for him. However, in this case of athletes, I do believe that inflammation and recovery, quicker recovery, you know, more efficient recovery would be the must for these guys who are trying to stay at a high level.
Yeah, and I think that's a great position to bring to the market. I remember in my soccer days, I realized later on that it wasn't about the training, it was about the recovery. You know, and no one was talking about this at the time, right? I had no clue about nutrition. I would eat McDonald's before soccer games. You know, like that's how bad it was back in the day. So I think if you bring, because a lot of athletes talk about training, but if you can introduce, like, here's the missing link. Here's why you can train 5-6 days a week and still feel like shit and not perform well. That introduces novelty or something new into the marketplace that they may not have considered, or maybe they thought about but never thought about it in a big enough way. And if you can put together messaging that helps them realize that this is an issue, especially if they feel tired and their muscles are always sore and they're not performing as well, now they're going to start to think about like, whoa, maybe I need to consider this. And I think that opens up a really interesting opportunity for you to fill. So I think that's a really interesting position in that market. So if that's the problem, then the promise is essentially faster, better recovery, so you can perform better, you can train harder, you can achieve your goals, you can last longer, et cetera. And so that's like, we're starting with the problem, or like the thing that they would rather have, right? Like a greater desire or reduction of something that's currently in their life. And we move them to a bigger future. So we all start with that single target market. We focus on where are they now? Where would they rather be? And that's really the most important thing to think about initially. So if you have that dialed in, that's where it all starts, because everything after that, all of your marketing, everything you do in your business is going to come back to that, right? So that's the first piece, is the single target market. The second piece, so I call these the 3 M's. So the first M is the market. Second M is the message. So the message is essentially, think about it as your marketing. So marketing is everything you type, it's everything you say, it's everything people see from you. It's everything, right? So the key with the messaging is that, again, whether it's a video, whether it's a social post, whether it's an ad, is that message, those words, or that video needs to hit people, the right people, in such a way where they're like, wow, Kaio knows what I'm going through, and let me pay attention to this. Because if we just think of how people use their phone, right? Let's just use that as an example. So they're scrolling through Facebook or they're scrolling through Instagram, and they scroll. They're not going to pay attention to anything unless it catches their attention. And the things that catch our attention are the things that are important to us, right? Where someone feels, hold on, this is about me. Let me pay attention to this. So we call this message to market match. So your messaging needs to speak to your audience in such a way where they feel understood by you. Because if they feel understood by you, then they're more likely to trust you as the person who has a solution to what it is that they're going through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So the messaging is not a one-time event. It's a process. It's a journey that lasts for the lifetime of your business. Everything you ever put out, you want to be thinking, am I addressing the fears, the frustrations, the wants and desires of my perfect clients? And maybe making an inventory of those. Like, what are they frustrated by? Where do they want to be? And those become the starting blocks for how you can create content, how you can put together messaging that can relate to them so they feel like, wow, that's exactly what I went through yesterday. Let me read more. And that's really, really important. So that's the second piece, which is the messaging. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then the third M is what we call the magic. So the magic is how you position and package what it is you do in such a way where your audience sees it as new, as exciting, as different, as something they have to have, as opposed to, oh, Kyle is just another health coach. Because what you want to avoid is positioning yourself as a health coach, just the same as anyone would, I think, ideally be best served by not calling themselves just a chiropractor or just a naturopath, but a specialist in a specific domain. So, maybe you call yourself a high performance athlete coach. I don't even know, like something where they can't put you in a box with everyone else who does the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
Because now you're just one of them. You want it to be related to what it is that they do and what the outcome is, but in such a way where they're like, wow, that sounds really cool. So in terms of how you present yourself, that's one part of the positioning and packaging. The other thing too is your service, right? If it's one-on-one or if it's a program or however it is, you want to think about introducing what we call a proprietary process. So we talked about problem, we talked about the promise, right? And the middle piece is how you get them from the problem to the promise. We call that a proprietary process. Okay. So the nice thing that you mentioned is you want to help people improve recovery, reduce inflammation, which I think is really unique and I think pertinent to the right high performance type of athletes. And there's probably a way that you do that. There is a way, you just have to extract it. Like, so in our business, most of our clients come to us because they don't have a predictable way of getting clients, right? That's their problem. They want a more predictable way of getting clients so they can make more money, help more people, all that good stuff. So how we do that is through what we call a perfect client pipeline. Okay, it's a 4-step process, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And we introduce that as the how. And it's very different from what people have seen. It's like, well, how do you do what you do? Well, we don't just get you to post on social media. Like, there's a very specific process for how we do this. And if you can extract what you do, how you do what you do, and articulate it in such a way where it's a 3, 4, 5-step process, now you have something unique to bring to the marketplace that they haven't seen before. And now you've created a category of one where you have no competition or less competition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
So where a lot of health coaches and experts get a little bit stuck is like, how do I even identify what it is I do? We have a process for that, but just really simply think about if you were to write a recipe at a high level for how you do what you do. Like if I were to work with you as a client, like what is the first phase of what we would do together? What is the second phase of what we would do together? What's the third phase? These become like big steps, if you will, part of like the building blocks of your process. And that becomes what makes you unique, because in a marketplace that is very competitive, like health and wellness, it's important to inject something that's new and different from what people have seen before. Because otherwise, what happens is mentally or verbally, we say, oh, I've seen this before, right? Or I've done stuff like this before. And when that happens, it's very tough to get people to come back and see the value in what it is you do and how you can help them. Because they're equating, oh yeah, I tried a diet before. Well, this is not a book. This is not a diet. It's a very different thing. So be able to express and articulate that in such a way where they see it as different and better than other approaches, then you've won half the battle. Because what happens after that is you don't really have to sell very aggressively. You don't have to be salesy and pushy. It's just like the right people will be like, this makes sense, right? Tell me more. And now they're more receptive to it because it's something they haven't tried before, they haven't done before. And what that does is it gives them a level or a sense of hope because they've tried X, Y, and Z and it hasn't worked. But now we're introducing, a new thing, and the new thing provides hope in them. Like, this could be the thing, right? Oh, I wasn't getting the results because I was missing this thing that only Kaio has. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So in terms of like just kind of bringing this all together, what I'd recommend, like in terms of you spending your time, first and foremost is clarifying your vision, where you want to be in a year from now, for instance, or longer. Then really identifying the 3 M's, right? So single target market, identifying who they are, really doing like even writing out a biography of who this person is, right? What's their first name? What do they do? Where do they hang out? All that kind of stuff. Who are they as a person? Really articulating the problem that they're dealing with, where they'd rather be. So the promise, starting to think about, basic messaging, like things that you stand for, things that they stand for, how you can be congruent with them. And then thinking about your magic, right? You as a person, as a brand, but also the service or program you're offering in such a way that is different and unique from other stuff that's out there. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. One question would be, so these steps that you were talking about, 3 to 4 steps that you said, would pretty much be me creating my own method of achieving that goal.
Exactly.
Because I see a lot of people talking about my method. And I understand what that is. I just didn't know if that is one of the steps to make things, to differentiate myself,
Yeah, totally. And I think your method, if you can tie in an aspect, like, I don't know if this is true or not, but a lot of marketing is simply positioning. So let's say you called it the Kyle method, right? And part of the magic of like, why does Brazil produce so many amazing athletes? Well, let me tell you, right? That's part of what my method does. So there's like, that may or may not be true, but like you can tie it into some type of mystery where it makes sense that you have some secret that most people don't understand yet. And like, as you work with them and they deploy your method, they get better results because they're doing their thing.
Cool. Yeah, cool. I get that.
Is that a good place to start?
Absolutely. I do want to let you know that as of right now, on my free time that I'm working on my one-on-one, I am also working on building a course, online course, which relates to pain and people eliminating inflammation in their bodies through pretty much through nutrition. So it doesn't go into other areas. So as I would go with athletes, but it's more for the common person, they're just in pain, living their day-to-day lives and going to work and all that. So I am spending a lot of time on this. I am watching courses, how I can make this the best way, how I can teach this right. So I want to, the question would be, how would you handle that in the middle of trying to also build my practice. I think this is part of my business. However, it's not my practice where I'm like actually like coaching people live and, giving instruction as we go.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to focus, right? So if you want to deal with athletes, I would, again, like look at where is this stuff I'm putting together for the general population coming into play, right? If it's not a major piece of what I want to do initially, based on your time and bandwidth, I would look at number one, getting clarity around the stuff we talked about. And then second is how do I get clients as soon as possible, right? If that's the objective. And, like if you have a social following, if you have, I would like to keep it super guerrilla, like to keep it super boots to the ground. I would look at, who do I already have in my network? So Instagram following, Facebook, whatever, email list, friends, family, who can I ask for, like, hey, who do you know who's an athlete, et cetera. I would start there. I would exhaust that as much as possible. And then just looking at the two opportunities for generating new clients, there's gonna be two ways. You've got the inbound, which is gonna be a lot of the posting of content, right? Social media, et cetera, where people find you somehow and come to you. That's a long journey, okay? That's gonna take a long time generally, unless you have a big following already. Yeah. And the second way is outbound, which is you proactively putting ads in front of the right people, right? So that's where you would spend whatever, 10, 15, 20 bucks a day on Facebook to put an ad or a message in front of people who are certain types of athletes, and then they would come into your world that way. You're gonna get the fastest results that way. The inherent risk is that you're spending a little bit of money, but the upside is that you can make a lot of money very quickly and attract a lot more clients very quickly compared to the organic road. Both are really powerful. Personally, for me, like how we help our clients, we focus on the ad avenue because it can produce the results the fastest. But in the long term, there's a lot of value to the content side of things. But I wouldn't use content initially with the attraction for 4 or 5 years down the road, but also I wouldn't expect a huge number of clients coming from that. So just kind of looking at what makes the most sense for you to start. I would say tap into your network, keep building your organic stuff, consider the paid traffic if you want. And I would, based on your time and energy, et cetera, the pain stuff for the general population, I may put that on the back burner because it could be a bit of a distraction from, your main focus based on what I'm hearing here. Cool.
All right.
So is that a helpful start, Kyle?
Very, very helpful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cool.
And
so
honestly, when you or your team messaged me on the DM on Instagram, and they said that I won a call, I was like, hey, I'm gonna have a call with somebody on Yuri's team. Like they're gonna probably offer me something or something. And then you guys posted that, and you guys tagged me on the stories. And I was like, whoa, this is serious. I'm going to talk to the guy, So I was like, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, for a second, awesome. I did not believe it was the real deal here with you. So thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely, man. Great to connect with you on Zoom here. And yeah, keep me posted with how things are going, and excited to see how things unfold for you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, man.
Awesome, buddy. All the best.